When Keanu Reeves sees a shoplifter stealing food for his family, his reaction is endearing. Please let us know where you're viewing this video. Leave a comment, remember to like it, and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. A small grocery store in Los Angeles had its aisles buzzing softly with fluorescent lights, casting a familiar glow over neatly stacked shelves. It was a calm afternoon, the kind when time seemed to slow down, and the soft hum of casual conversations blended with the rhythmic beeps of cash registers. Using her reading spectacles on the tip of her nose, an elderly woman compared 2 browns of cereal. As she went for a carton of milk, a young mother calmed her restless child. A cashier's hairstyle as the bell above the entrance chimed. A man wearing a basic hoodie and jeans with a baseball cap pulled low over his face entered, moving with quiet confidence and scanning items with the practiced ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. He was just another customer picking up a few necessities. Unnoticed, Keanu Reeves entered the store and strolled slowly but deliberately, looking through the shelves with the same consideration as everyone else. A bread loaf, an egg carton, and a water bottle. He paused for a time, seemingly lost in contemplation, holding the objects lightly in one hand. He didn't identify anyone yet, which was precisely how he liked it. Keanu was thinking about something else when he noticed a slight change in atmosphere. It was something about the way a young man near the bakery section stood, too stiff and hesitant, appearing to be in his mids. His clothes were a little worn, and his eyes darted between a few customers nearby and the security guard near the entrance. Keen's gaze followed the man's shaking hands as he reached for a loaf of bread, hesitated, and then slipped it under his jacket. It was swift, but not fast enough, across the store. When a burly security guard saw that Keanu's posture had changed, he immediately began moving toward the young man with purpose. The thief realized that he had been seen stiffened, his face going pale, his breath coming faster, his fingers clenching as if he were about to run, and Keanu exhaled softly, setting down his basket. Before the guard could reach the young man, he had witnessed desperation. The man took a stumbling step back, his eyes wide with fear, and Keanu said, "Hey, rough day," in a low, steady voice. The young man flinched, caught between running and responding to Keanu's expression. But he held no judgment or anger, just a quiet understanding that the security guard was closing in time, and Keanu made his decision. The security guard paused, looking from Keanu to the young man who was shaking. Once it was thick enough to cut, the store's tension gradually started to subside. Keanu caught the guard's gaze and said, "I'll take care of this and anything else he needs," in a calm yet forceful tone. His remarks were final and not a request. The guard let out. "I saw Keanu Reeves step in a day when no one else would. He paid for struggling father's groceries, gave him hope, and walked away without expecting anything in return." His calm assurance and the way he had transformed an act of desperation into an act of hope were what the world needed to see. She wasn't the type to post things online, but this is the kind of kindness we need in the world. Within hours, the post went viral on social media. People shared their own stories of Keanu's generosity, their own moments of unexpected kindness. From strangers, news outlets picked up headlines praising his humility and compassion. But somewhere in Los Angeles, away from the online frenzy, Keanu remained unaware of the viral moment. He simply continued his day, as he always did, living quietly, moving to the world with kindness, expecting nothing in return, and in a small apartment that night, a father sat with his family, placing warm food on the table, wiping away tears of gratitude. He had walked into that grocery store, believing the world had forgotten him, but now he knew better, because kindness, even the quietest kind, had the power to change everything. Even the strictest homeowners started complimenting the blend of colors, the way nature and care had merged into something truly special. It became a symbol not just of beauty, but of harmony. And just like that, the old battle between order and chaos faded. Mr. Thompson still kept his lawn, meticulously trimmed, but now along its edges wild of flowers thrived a quiet compromise and unspoken truce. When Evelyn went outside one morning, she saw something surprising on the bench beneath the oak tree. It appeared that the garden had not only transformed a yard, but also a few hearts. "See you in the K area." Anew, Evelyn laughed softly as she looked down the street. Kay's house was empty. He had left as quietly as he had arrived, without favor, but his presence persisted in the way the grumpiest man on the block was now kneeling in the garden, carefully tending to something that had once irritated him. In the warmth of old wounds healing, and the laughter of neighbors appreciating the flowers. The flowers had taken root, and so had kindness, so Evelyn put the note in her pocket and picked up her watering can.
A sharp exhale and then released the young man's arm. "Fine," he muttered, "but next time just ask instead of stealing." With that, he stepped back, his job done. The young man's fingers pressed into his temples as he looked down at the bread in his hands, then up at Keanu's eyes, which were glassy with emotion. "Sir, he said, his voice breaking, then he swallowed, then tried again. "I'm not sure how to express my gratitude." The young man paused, but something in Keanu's face, a kind, patient, caused him to open up. "I lost my job 3 months ago," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Keanu gave him a faint, knowing smile and continued, "No need. I was among the first to leave my construction job when the company went out of business, and I've been looking for work ever since, but it's been difficult for my wife and me." He left, shaking his head, "And we don't have any money left, so I just took a deep breath because I couldn't let them go hungry." Keanu nodded, his eyes full with silent comprehension. "I hear you," he said, adding, "I assure you that difficult times don't last forever." Keanu reached into his pocket once more, took out another bill, and gently pressed it into the young man's palm. Before the man could object, he said, "This isn't charity, it's just a little help to get you through today." The young man blinked quickly and nodded as if attempting to believe those words himself. His lips quivered as he fought back tears, and he whispered, "Thank you. You have no idea what this means." Keanu merely gave him a shoulder pat and said, "Take care of your family." He then returned to his own groceries as though nothing unusual had happened, but for the young man and everyone else in that store, it was a moment they would never forget. The young man was still in shock as he clutched the bill in his hand. Without making a show of it, Keanu turned back toward the register and put his own small basket down. He motioned to the cashier to ring up a few necessities for him as well. "That," he said softly, and the cashier hesitated, her eyes darting to the young man and then back to Keanu before nodding and quickly scanning more items. Rice, pasta, milk, and a few canned items. Basic. The young man's lips parted as he realized what was happening. "Sir, you don't have to." Keanu held up a hand to gently stop him. "I know," he said, "but I want to after paying." He took the bags and handed them over. "This should help for the time being." He then leaned in slightly and said, "Listen, don't give up, there's always another way. If you need help, reach out food bank shelters. There are good people out there willing to lend a hand. You don't have to do this alone." The young man's face was split between thankfulness and incredulity as he clutched the goods, his fingers quivering, his eyes moist with emotion, and he opened his lips before closing it in shock before managing to mutter, thank you so much." Keanu gave his shoulder a comforting squeeze while grinning. "Simply promise me something," the man said, nodding rapidly. "Anything when things get better, and they will do the same for someone else," the young man said, laughing softly and shakily. Keanu nodded, then, just as casually as he had entered, he picked up his own bag, pulled his cap down a bit, and walked toward the exit. The customers who had previously murmured in judgment now watched everyone inquire, including the security guard who had been prepared to escort the young man out, who appeared preoccupied as Keanu vanished through the doors and into the Los Angeles afternoon. The young man wiped his eyes while glancing down at the groceries and cash in his hands. He had entered the store feeling hopeless, but now he was leaving with more than just food. He was leaving with hope, and for the first time in a long time, he thought that things might improve. For a brief moment, the young man stood by the exit, clutching the bags of groceries as though they might disappear. His heart was still pounding, but for the first time in months, it was out of hope. He looked back toward the store, looking for Keanu, but the actor had already left. There was no grand exit, no attention-seeking gestures, just a quiet departure as if nothing remarkable had occurred. The grocery store was quiet, with staff and customers still processing what they had just witnessed, exchanging glances, and the same people who had just moments before stood in silent admiration. When Keanu Reeves, a cashier, eventually said, "I think so," another worker said, shaking her head in shock, but he didn't even want to take credit. Oh, the woman clutching her phone near the self-checkout, she had captured some of the scene on camera, her hands shaking with excitement. PIU's gentle magnanimity.